Welcome back to episode 50 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name is Alex, and here as always with Adam.
Hi.
And returning guest, Peter.
Hello again.
Welcome back to the podcast, Pete.
Thank you.
And we're a group of Ottawa Beast players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournaments, stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Yeah, definitely.
50 episodes,
That's
boys.
a fact. 50 in. You
Halfway
have
to
get
100.
better. Feels weird, actually. Like, it's kind of exciting. I got this giant mason jar of coffee that I brought over to Alex to record with, and I'm feeling pretty good. It was exciting, like, going through. We were kind of deciding on, like, the general topic for today, like, oh, what should we talk about? Because, we always have a topic of, like, improving and everything, and then I was like, man, we should just do a retrospective almost, because
Yeah.
there's been a lot of funny moments and also good episodes. So it's a clip show, but we're not going to do editing for clipping. So we're just going to talk about it.
Way too lazy to do
What's
that.
the Simpsons episode? Like, what do they always call it? It's like there's like a Simpsons reference where they always do a clip shows every couple seasons and like make jokes about how like the writers are like too lazy. That's why. Or like the animators are on strike or something. Like, but
yeah. So, kicking things off with the week that was for this episode. Last week we had a GP in Minneapolis, standard GP, won by Mono Black Zombies.
Mono Black Zombies everywhere in standard
Yeah.
now at this point. Like, people have realized that Hazard is soft to Dark Salvation and Grasp of Darkness.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about this already.
I
in
mean,
the
obviously we're way ahead of the
pro-
curve as usual.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't much of a secret
No,
going into
like
this weekend.
people knew going into the Pro Tour even. Like,
Yeah.
that's why people played Zombies.
yeah. And Mono Red did not have a good showing. One deck in the top 8 and one deck in the top 32.
Yeah, that's the surprising part to me, is that only one in the top 32. I would expect it to be littered with more, but it was littered with zombies.
Yeah.
Just dead bodies everywhere.
It was just black, green, and zombies everywhere, which doesn't surprise me to see
No,
that
not at all.
only one Mono Red slipped in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the metagame kind of adjusted very quickly. Well, the live metagame, Magic Online had already adjusted. Like
Literally the weekend of the Pro Tour.
I mean, Magic Online's gone through like 3 different permutations at this point.
Yeah,
like,
it's just
ramp was good and now ramp's bad again. Like they're
Yeah.
like 5 cycles.
whereas
ahead.
the next standard tournament in paper ramp will be good.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Like, poor Paul Dean, platinum player from Toronto, like, really nice guy. He played ramp this weekend at the GP, probably because he's like too ahead of the curve, right?
Too soon,
right? And he's just 1 week too soon, like, poor guy. Like, his deck looks sweet though. He came prepared. He's like green white ramp.
gray and white ramp.
Yeah, he's like mainboarding authority to consoles. Like, what I thought, like, his deck probably needed some work. He's playing Weirding Wood and like gifts. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But he definitely came prepared to beat aggressive decks, but I think he's a 1 week too early,
Well, wait, why do you say that?
Well, because it's probably better against zombies and better against green black. Like, ramp strategies, right? Like, will be good when mono red is gone, right? Like, mono red was still at this GP, but it was just getting beat up by zombies. But the problem is, like, as ramp, like, you're still gonna end up getting paired against mono red, and that's gonna knock you out of the tournament.
Yeah.
You have to wait until people just stop showing up with red, and they just show up with
Okay.
zombies and green black and the slower green black versions, right? As the decks begin to slow down, because going bigger is how you beat mirrors. So eventually this leads to a metagame that people going bigger and slower and slower and slower, that Torrential Gearhulk will make a comeback, right? Because people playing green black, like zombies, there's less abrades floating around because there's less red, and then Torrential Gearhulk, and then ramp, that's like prime breeding grounds for ramp, right? Because they want to be paired against those decks. They want to be paired against people that give them time.
Okay, fair enough.
And I just fail to believe that any control deck ever will have a good matchup against a ramp deck that plays Worldbreaker and Ulamog. Like, I just don't. They'll just naturally hit their land drops. You can't kill them fast enough.
Yeah, I mean, Dreamstealer does a lot of work there.
If they're playing black.
Yeah, but like blue. Yeah, you're right. Blue red is gonna have
blue red.
They're gonna have trouble.
Yeah, it's just so miserable. Like, it's just absolutely miserable. So yeah, like, I think that ramp was like going to be well positioned.
Like going into this weekend.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
At this last GP, like, no way. And then it's like, the thing is, like, zombies though is still not a great matchup for ramp. Like, zombies can be fast if they want to, and they're resilient. Like, they can go long. Like, they can go long. They can beat. They can theoretically beat an Ulamog.
Yeah, but like the zombies deck, like it's not fast on the same level as mono red is, because zombies is just kind of go wide, draw a lot of cards with the Crypt Breaker, and then kind of kill you in like 1 or 2 swings.
Yeah.
Whereas mono red's just pressuring you every turn. So like zombies decks are not quick enough to capitalize on the setup that ramp is doing.
And things like Hour of Devastation and Chandra Flamecaller, like those are still really good cards against zombies.
Oh, yeah. Zombies just never want to see Chandra 6, like ever. That card is terrifying.
Yeah, like that's probably the best indicator of how good ramp is. Like how good is Chandra Flamecaller?
Yeah,
like she does everything that your deck wants to do. It just ties everything together.
Yeah, pitch bad cards late. Like
a lot of the ramp decks I've been seeing aren't even like, not all of them are playing that card.
Yeah,
exactly.
that can't be right.
Like she's not great right now, so ramp in general is kind of not great, and you have to do some weird things to like maybe squeak some wins out. But
yeah, so like ramp's like almost there, but I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah,
I
pretty
think
much every deck I've been seeing now, they're all playing Ballista.
yeah, they're
Which,
playing
I mean,
Ballista
they
as a way to
shouldn't.
beat aggro decks.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is like right now too, like Chandra, the problem with Chandra Flamecaller is like I was talking about this with Pete before we left to come record. Is like Planeswalkers aren't actually that great right now. Well, except for Chandra, because the decks that play Chandra are generally very proactive. But like I was watching some green white tokens matchups play, and like that deck's pretty strong, but like Nissa and Gideon just like didn't look good. And part of it was because everyone's playing Aether Sphere Harvester, right? To stop mono red.
Yeah.
So Aether Sphere Harvester just crumples Planeswalkers like left, right, and center. There's, like, people couldn't do anything to stop it. It's like, what, you can play your Nissa, make a plant, and then it goes to 1? Then you make another plant and it dies? Like, that's awful.
Yeah, I mean, like, Mardu Vehicles is still around too. Heart of Kieran still does a good job of policing Planeswalkers as well.
Yeah.
Like that. There was 2 copies of Mardu Vehicles in the top 8, right? Of this tournament?
I can't remember.
Pretty sure there are. So let me double check. It was won by zombies.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, there's 2.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah, like, that's what I mean. Like, the format's, like, pretty wide open. Like, and so, but yeah, vehicles are just really good against Planeswalkers. Like, so it's kind of tough to want to be playing them. So,
Yeah, but
I thought there was some cool one-off decks too at this GP, like Chris Botello, the Cat Pact guy who won with the Damnation, or what's the card, like
Demonic Pact?
Demonic Pact, and like the cat that gives something, the red card that like you donate something. What was that card
Harmless
called?
Offering.
Harmless Offering.
yeah.
Yeah, the Cat Pack guy who top aided that at that GP. He got 9th on Breakers with mono black vampires, which was like Eldrazi vampires basically. It looked pretty cool. Like 4 Ifnir Dreadlands, and like same in the zombie stack was really good, especially against black green. Like I watched him kill a 5/6 Sylvan Advocate because somebody played out 2 Constrictors, not realizing that if they activated Ifnir Dreadlands, it was going to double the counters. So their Sylvan Advocate got, which was pretty sweet to watch.
Yeah. There was also, that guy finished X3. They had a.
Oh, is that what it was? I
yeah.
thought it was on Breakers.
No, he was X3.
Oh, wow, he got 9th at X3?
They showed his match in the like round 15.
Oh, okay.
And then there was a blue-white approach of the
Dan
second
Ward.
zone. Yeah, Dan Ward.
Big Dan Ward. That guy's huge.
Yeah, just we've seen this deck on Moto too. It's just spells, enchantments, and that's it, and lands. No creatures.
So yeah, like P said, he's like, this deck looks junky,
It just looked so awkward.
Yeah, it looks dumpy, like miserable. And then I was like, yeah, but it's a control deck with free wins.
Yeah, because it does. You just like, and every time you draw a removal spell, you just discard it immediately.
Right, and that's what I said. I was like, it's one of the rare control decks that gets free wins, because if your opponent they don't know what they're playing against, and they keep an opening hand with like a creature, 2 removal spells, and like 4 lands, like that's a pretty risky hand, but they keep it because they think, well, maybe I'm against mono red, so they keep like Fatal Push, Sylvan Advocate, 4 lands. That's it. The game's over.
You're dead.
You win. Like, your blue-white control deck just got a free win because they're on a mulligan to 5, and 4 of them are lands. Like, you get a free win. So, whereas, like, against an aggro deck, or, like, the green-black energy mirror, or, like, the green-black mirror, like, that would be an okay hand. It's not great, but it's a keepable hand in many cases. It's pretty borderline, but, like, you would probably keep that hand.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ship that hand.
Yeah, some notable things about this deck. Not playing Hour of
single
Revelation.
creature.
No Hour of Revelation in the main deck, just because you're playing Aether Meltdowns and Castouts.
Yeah. Aether Meltdown seems pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Aether Meltdown seems sweet with Hour of Revelation, because it's a removal spell that leaves 2 permanents in play.
Yeah, true.
Oh, yeah,
But
so you
you're-
can make your card cheap.
not so good with
The
cast
problem,
out.
though, is that
Yeah.
not with cast out, but the problem is I imagine you also want to be using it on scrap heap scourgers and hazards.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, actually, yeah, blowing up your own Aether Meltdown if it's on a hazard is pretty miserable.
Yeah, it's not a good look. Not a good look.
No.
Same with like your cast out. You probably ideally don't want to use it on a hazard because that means they're probably going to play the next one out.
Yeah, just like,
But I'm saying like if you have to and it sticks, then you definitely don't want to be.
and they
casting
can still
Hour.
poke for one.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Like,
Well,
I'll take one because like I mean this deck though can actually beat a hazard quite easily. Has Blessed Alliance.
yeah.
Has 4 of them.
Yeah.
And that card's real good. Against
Also, one
aggro.
thing I didn't notice about this before, it's not playing Disallow or Essence Scatter, Negate. It's just Censor and Supreme Will.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
because they
this deck
dig.
is just about velocity. Like you're just
Yeah.
trying to find, and it's like jamming all the this. Like it's just jamming 4 fumigates. Like it's literally just buying time until it can cast one window to cast approach, and then start digging because it's turn 8 or it's 8. If it hit all its land drops, it's turn 8 is fumigate. You cast Supreme Will, dig 4 deeper to find the approaches that I cast on 7. Right? Like this deck is trying to kill you very fast when it decides to, and it gains the life to do it. Like I think this deck is actually quite reasonable. Like is very powerful.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Why is there Regal Caracal on the sideboard?
Because it gives your cats lifelink and provides multiple bodies for the falter effects from and Crop Crasher. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it costs 5, but like it just provides multiple bodies and that's all you need. In fact, on Magic Online, I've seen some cat decks, like some cat tribal.
Really?
Well, because Pride Sovereign, the one that exerts to make 2 cats, those things have lifelink. And it just creates multiple bodies, which is like what you need against mono red, which in fact, if you look at the top 8 green black deck lists, we talked about this, right? They're playing Catacomb Sifter, and the reason they're playing Catacomb Sifter is they just need bodies. So that Rishkar doesn't suck, so that Verder's Gearhulk doesn't suck. Because like I've played green black energy with Rishkars and not Catacomb Sifter against mono red, they just kill all your stuff, and then your Rishkar's a 3/3. It doesn't do anything.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate that Felidar Guardian died for Saheeli's sins and how great that would have been, that interaction between Felidar Guardian and Regal Caracal?
Oh yeah,
It's a cat that blinks and gets you more cats.
yeah, I know. Yeah, that's really criminal.
But
Like,
no, we have unplayable Saheeli instead.
well, they didn't want to ban the mythic,
Oh, who cares?
planes. I agree. I'm just saying that's like for sure why.
Yeah,
It's just
I
rattled.
don't
I wanted my
I
tribal
don't
cats.
disagree, but I'm still upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, who isn't?
Yeah.
I like that. Actually, would have been sweet.
Yeah.
And also like
Felidar Guardian is just so much more interesting than Saheeli.
yeah, Saheeli's not an interesting card at all. Whereas like Felidar Guardian had potential to see play at just value decks, like
Yeah.
Panharmonicon, Bruise, like
Oath of Nissa, like
right, like Saheeli's just not interesting.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk a little bit about decks adjusting to mono red, which we kind of have already. Like black green was one of the main ones. We saw both. Most of the black green decks that top aided this tournament are playing Sylvan Advocate again
And Catacomb, yeah,
and Catacomb Sifters.
they just need 2/3 bodies.
yeah,
Yeah.
2/3s everywhere.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
2/3s to block 2/1s.
And like, yeah.
Yeah, and
Like, that's it. That's all. That's
you-
all it comes down to.
you brought up the point of Sylvan Advocate being that 2/3 and also being able to attack and play defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so
So-
important in the deck is that you can't, well, they keep saying, if you watch commentary, if you listen to people talk about the mono red deck, one of the major things they say is you can't give them time because they'll bury you with a Bomat Courier if they have to, or they'll just burn you with their lands. Like they will get you. Like their hazard, every card does 2 damage in their deck at one point. They'll kill you if you give them time. You cannot give them time. So Sylvan Advocate is a way that it plays defense and kills them. So like it's perfect. It's a perfect card in theory against them.
The other things that I've been seeing more of PNLR, 2 bodies, so that your falter effects aren't as great, and has the additional effect of being able to pump up your Aether Sphere Harvesters
Oh, so you can
for
gain
like
more life.
massive amounts of lifelink. Yeah,
Yeah, you saw a lot of Aethers for Harvesters this weekend.
everyone
Tons,
was playing
everywhere.
like if you attack, you use a token to crew it, attack, give it lifelink, and pump it twice, like 5 life.
Yeah,
How do they
that's-
ever win? You still have a 2/2 that you can block with. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, PNLR is very good. I think it's the same theory with Catacomb stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like multiple bodies and like
Make
ways
sure
to
I
crew your vehicles without giving up your turn for your play for the turn, right?
Right, yeah. It makes it so that Aethers for Harvester can get crewed by the 1/1 Scion,
Yeah.
and then your Catacomb Sifter can still block. So you're not losing any
Yeah.
kind of like tempo, I guess. Like you're not using one of your blockers to create a blocker. Like
Yeah.
you just get extra creatures. So yeah, it's really good. There's also a modern tournament that happened this weekend. Which
There was in Syracuse. None of us went to.
yeah, but there was some local Ottawa players that were there. Like Jean-Francois was on coverage playing Merfolk. He was 9-1 at one point, but he lost to that crazy hollowed one deck.
Oh boy.
Do you know what? Dude, he got turn 2'd.
What?
The Vengevine deck?
Or like turn 2'd or turn 3'd.
Yeah. What was the Vengevine deck discarding? Like, how was it discarding?
I can't remember. It has like lootings and like other stuff. But the guy like on turn 2 played like 2 Vengevines back and played like 3 hollowed ones and then killed them on turn 3. He put like 16 power in play on turn 2.
That's giving me flashbacks to
I
the
guess
quest deck from
Faithless Loading is
dude.
pretty good with Hollowed One.
Dude, it was ridiculous to watch. I was just like, what the? Like, it was absurd. Like, I'm sure the deck's actually awful because it's a glass cannon. Like, it's super inconsistent, but it was cool to watch. But yeah, none of us went. I think I regret it in retrospect. I just didn't have time because I'd like just finished editing my PhD and like I didn't have time or money to like book a trip to Syracuse for the weekend. Like the last time I went to an SCG in Syracuse, like the Star City games used to be one day. They used to be one-day tournaments, right? And that's the last time I went. And that was fine because we just went up in the morning and then we drove back because Syracuse is only like 2.5 hours away from here. But because it's a whole weekend thing, it's basically going to a GP now. I didn't want to book a hotel in Syracuse.
Andy from Kingston finished in 10th too.
Yeah, Roger. Yeah. Andy Football Piers. He writes for like MTG Canada for Wizard Tower and stuff too.
Does he still?
I don't know if he still does, but he did for a long time. He streamed for a bit too.
What's open that Merfolk deck?
He's a good guy.
I think there's a surprise in there.
Smuggler's Copter.
There we go.
Oh my god, I didn't even notice. In the 3rd place Merfolk deck, the Smuggler's Copter. Yo, it's probably insane in Merfolk.
That's what I've been hearing. I mean, it's hard to get a like unbiased opinion about Merfolk by the people who love Merfolk because they just don't see reason about anything. So, but they all love Smuggler's Copter. So maybe there's something.
So I went into playing Merfolk objectively way back. What was it like? When we started recording this podcast, and I came back to him being like, yeah, Merfolk was awesome. And you guys were all like, you're an idiot. Yeah, like shit. But like, yo, that deck's actually pretty good. Like I stand by
it's not.
No, it's pretty good.
No,
the reason now it's better is because like there's less bolts and stuff. Like it's pretty good.
Yeah, there's just fatal pushes that you can't grow out of.
Yeah, that's fine.
That would make it worse, wouldn't it?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. This deck sucks.
It got 3rd. Okay, what I don't understand though, and like my friend Ryan like messaged me about this, is he was so outraged that Storm lost to both Merfolk and Tron. He was so mad. Well, Tron like is
like Tron plays cards that interact now. Like
yeah,
main
Thought
deck.
Not Seer is a beating.
Yeah, Thought Not Seer and Chalices and
I wanted
Relics.
to point out, that's why I opened this page, that Eldrazi Tron finished 1st and 2nd in this tournament.
Like
yeah, that deck's very good.
Storm is super reliant on their graveyard now too. So like Relic is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't listening to what you were saying, but Chalice of the Void is probably pretty good versus them.
And their main deck, like some versions
there's
are
a lot
main
of
decking it now.
No, like Eldrazi Tron.
All the Eldrazi Tron decks are
okay.
Eldrazi Tron's like a pretty offensive deck, actually. Like it's super good. It's really, really powerful and really obnoxious. But
it's fine.
But I think that its fail state is so miserable.
Yes.
Like just playing a turn 3 Matter Reshaper in Modern is not good enough. And there are hands where like that's your first play because you have like Ghost Quarter, Seagate, Wreckage,
and one Tron piece or something.
And a Tron piece. And that's like
if you're gonna play Tron, just play Karn.
Right.
I think that's something we can all
they're
agree
playing
on.
Karn.
Yeah, they're playing like 2. That's not a commitment.
You want 4 Karn.
I don't know, like you still have stuff to do on turns 1 and 2. You have Dismember, you have Expedition Map.
No, I think like the deck's really good. Like it's really scary. I think that Death Shadow's still the better deck in Modern, even though like it just wasn't really in this top 8 besides 1.
Yeah.
But I do think Death Shadow is like still the best deck in Modern. I thought like but I think that's good. I think that's a good thing.
It's probably the best deck, but it's not
oppressive.
Yeah, it's not. It is in some ways, but yeah, it's not oppressive in the way that we usually think of as being really bad, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like how Mono Red, we were like, look at it dominate the Pro Tour like 2 weeks ago in Standard or whatever, and then it's like, yeah, and then we said right away on the podcast, we're like, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And you and I, when we were watching it at home throughout the weekend, we were like, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? We were like, yeah, this is good because like red decks are hateable and like they're beatable. Even though for some reason Finkel tweeted that it was like the worst Standard format he'd seen in years.
Yeah.
Don't understand why, but maybe he's right. It seems good. It seems like a good Standard format.
Seems fine, yeah.
And I think Modern's like in a similar place. I think Modern's like in a really healthy place. I kind of regret like not going to Syracuse actually, mostly because Dino Barbecue. Dino Barbecue is the best. If anyone goes to Syracuse for an SCG, man, that place rules.
Yeah, Magic Twitter was just unbearable all weekend. It was just mono pictures of insane barbecue.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Syracuse has insane barbecue. It's so good. I don't know why.
I have no idea.
But it's like it's wild. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I think I was telling you the story about how me and Ron and Ryan. I couldn't believe it too. Phil Sam's was like, no, I'm tired, and like went back to the hotel and didn't come. And same with Ted. And I was like, what? And they always want to go for barbecue, and they didn't come with. But it was so good, and I ate so much. They give you like the whole like huge, like basically like a cookie sheet full of food, you know, like a big like cooking tray worth.
Yeah.
And I ate like brisket, ribs, like pulled pork or something. Like I got like every meat kind of thing. And I was so full that I went to the bathroom and I was like going to the washroom at the urinal. I like fell asleep standing. I was so tired and full because it was after like a whole day of playing Magic that I like nodded off while I was using kind of like, and there was like a band playing in the other section of the bar. It was really loud in the bathroom, and I just kind of like nodded off and shook my head, and I was like, Jesus, how long was I out? You know, like it was so good. I ate so much. I was so full, dude. The place was so good. Like Ryan and I have joked about driving back to the 2.5 hours to Syracuse just to eat there again. That's how good the barbecue is. So, yeah. Former guests, they've both been on the show. Ted and Phil both blew it.
Wow.
Because they just didn't want it. They're like, yeah, I'm just going to go get like Subway and go home. I was like, you guys are morons. And it was cheap too. It was like $18 for like this.
That's it?
Oh, dude, for like 3 pounds of food. It was crazy. It's so cheap.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why it was obnoxious on Twitter. Anyway. To get sidetracked, but yeah, I thought it was cool. Jeskai Control was in the top 8
actually
too.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask to see that list because it's not Jeskai Control. It's got another surprise in it. Well, surprise.
Thundermaw?
Geist of St. Traft and Spell Queller specifically.
Yeah, they were like
this is a tempo deck. This is not really it's got
so the reason why they're playing Geist right now. Geist is like acceptable against Death Shadow and other decks because you can clear out their blockers.
Yeah.
But like Geist was unacceptable for a while because people thought that the company decks were good.
Yeah, it's good. It's probably good in the like Bant company decks.
Oh, in those decks it's good.
But yeah, you're right.
But you cannot play this kind of tempo control deck, this Jeskai control deck, in a world where Kitchen Finks and other company decks exist because Geist is embarrassing against those cards. It's embarrassing against Ewit.
Yeah.
Somebody plays an Eternal Witness and just blocks your Geist and got back something, like you feel like an idiot. And you don't want to use your Bolt on an Ewit. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like, so those decks though, the Vizier of Remedies, the Counters Company decks, they're nowhere. Like because they aren't good. The Vizier of Remedies deck isn't good. And we said this, remember? Like we said that deck sucked.
Yep.
And we've been saying it for a long time. It's just new hotness. It was a fad. It's bad. And now that deck has died off, Geist of St. Traft is playable.
Yeah.
So, but I think that the Bant Company decks are okay.
I've been playing the Bant Company deck for about 6 months now, and I want to try the Spirits deck next.
I don't think that deck is good.
I think it's fine.
I think it's okay, but I also don't think that the Bant Company deck you were playing is good either. I think it's okay.
I think it's fine.
It's fine, but it's like it's not busted, and it's never gonna be like busted. But they're fun deck. Like they're good. They can. The thing is, they have game against everything.
Yeah, like this thing. They're like
except John.
Yeah, sure, but
that matchup seemed miserable.
No one plays Jund anymore.
Which is funny because I've never had a problem with it actually at like an event.
Yeah, because the people playing Jund are garbage.
Probably.
Because like when I was playing against Cam, I was like crumpling him when I was playing Jund just because I thought seized correctly, basically. But the problem is you can't play Jund right now in Modern because of Eldrazi Tron.
No, because it's a bad Death Shadow deck.
Right.
It does the same thing, except all your cards cost 3 to 4 times
Ari
as much
Lox
mana.
talked about this. He's like, what are you doing playing Jund when you're playing like 3 and 4 mana creatures when you could just play Death Shadow and all your creatures cost 1 and you just do the same thing but for half the mana. Like that's the thing. Yeah, Jund and Junk are just bad Death Shadow decks. But also like Jund, because it's slower, has famously never been able to beat Tron.
Yeah.
They can't. Yeah. Whereas at least Death Shadow has a chance. Yeah. I don't think the Death Shadow matchup actually against Tron is that good though. People think it's good. People think it's like favored. I don't think so.
I think it's good enough.
I think it's fine. I think it's a close match. I'd have to play it more.
Yeah. But if you're playing a mid-range like Thoughtseize deck and you have a close like Tron matchup, that is great.
Yeah,
that's like the best you can ask for.
That's the dream because like
and you just but you're a Thoughtseize deck with like pressure and interaction, like you're gonna crush a whole bunch of other matchups too, right? So like if you're even against Tron, like your worst matchup is even.
Well, no, okay, I don't know that's not even, but I don't even think I don't think it's your worst matchup either. I think Burn is probably your worst matchup.
Yeah, okay, but like you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Like you just get to like turn around a really bad matchup. And you don't really sacrifice anything, and you gain a bunch of extra points in a bunch of places. Like
no, like that's why Death Shadow's so good.
Yeah,
is that it's not 80 or 70% against the field or something stupid like that. It's not like Eldrazi Winter. It's not even close to that.
Yeah,
it's just a solid deck that's good against the whole field. Like it's just got a high win percentage against lots of decks and is not too bad of an underdog. Like because Modern is often defined by its 80-20 matchups, right? Like Jund has a 20% win rate against Tron basically. Like it can't win. Like it's miserable.
It's just so bad.
It's incredibly bad. Same with like the junk decks, the Abzan decks. Like they just can't beat Tron. Like it's a joke.
Yeah.
But Death Shadow doesn't really have a 20% matchup. Like it doesn't have a matchup it can't win. Like that, it's just like a joke, right? Like there's no blowouts. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's why Death Shadow's the best deck in Modern, and I think that's like a fine thing to have in the format. Is like, okay, there's a deck that has a really good win rate, overall, but it isn't oppressive. Like people can metagame against it. Like, Modern's in a good spot.
Death Shadow also like
never thought I'd say it, but
like Death Shadow rewards deck building too, right? Like the decks are never the same week to week.
Yeah. Well, this modern top 8 was like weird, right? There's like Smugglers, Copters, and Geists and Spellquellers. Although Spellqueller has been like increasingly seeing a stock in Modern.
Spellqueller is crazy in Modern. It just gives you everything you want.
It's better in Modern than it is in Standard by a lot. By a lot. It's very good in Modern. I think that if you get a chance to grab some cheap Spellquellers, like as far as like speccing on cards, like you should get play sets of Spellquellers.
Because why is it better in Modern than Standard?
Because people don't play as many removal spells, and again, this is like unlike the Merfolk joke about like people don't play Lightning Bolt, they just play Fatal Push. It's better against Fatal Push because like Bolt just kills it on its face. Whereas they need to turn on Revolt to kill a Spellqueller.
Like it's also a lot more important to have to have interaction built into your threats.
Yeah, and tempo
Modern. Tempo
matters in Modern, way more.
If your threats and answers line up poorly against something like Ad Nauseam, you just die. But with Spellqueller, you get to hedge for free, right?
Yeah. It's like a free answer to a lot of problems. It like deals with a lot of cards. Also, in Standard, there's like 5 drops that matter. That's not really the case in Modern. I mean, there are.
Yeah, but they're all like actually 7 mana, so it doesn't matter anyway. Like,
they're
just so huge
that like they don't matter, right? Like Karn, like doesn't you're not
Karn and Delve cards and whatever.
Yeah. So like, but Spellcaller deals with a lot of important early things, you know. So, and it also like stopping a call against command, like things like that. Like it's just a really also like affinity. It's good. It can ambush signal pests, just stuff like that. Like you don't even have to counter something. Like just being able to ambush a lot of stuff like is good. Like creatures in Modern aren't like that big generally, right? Like they're not humongous.
No, like there's a gap where they're like 2/3 dominates a lot of things, and then anything beyond that is like a 5/5 at minimum.
Right.
So
yeah. It's just like in general, like it covers a lot of bases too, because like Modern's so diverse, right? Like Modern is filled with decks that play just a variety of cards. Like you could play against combo creature decks, and Spellqueller is just kind of good against all of those decks. Like it's just a versatile card. So it's just really good in Modern. I think it's like people will play it more and more. I think it'll slowly become a staple in Modern.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So moving on from Modern.
You missed what did we do this week? Played some draft?
Yeah, played draft. How many times did you draft?
Twice. I've been starting to draft a lot more. This draft format is awesome. You can do whatever you want. The last draft, so I played 2 drafts. I played a ramp deck. I first picked an open fire, and then I was sitting beside Cam, and Cam passed Overwhelming Splendor, which I would never have passed in pack 1 because I would just start taking every ramp spell I could. Mm-hmm. And I just turned to him and I looked him dead in the eyes when he passed it to me, and I was just like, coward. And then I just took it. Well, I didn't use the word coward. I used a much more offensive one. But I said it, and the whole table like turned and looked. I just said it out loud just after just glaring at him. And then I proceeded to pick 2 Oasis Ritualists, the 2/4 that exerts.
Yeah.
And then in pack 3, like in the
That's a combo.
Oh yeah. And then I got 2 Gift of Paradise and 2 Spring to Mind in pack 3. So like I just said mono ramp and I got an Approach of the Second Sun. So I had this like insane ramp deck. Like I cast turn 6 Overwhelming Splendors on people, and it was sweet. Like I had a play that was a pretty sick blowout where I knew the guy had an onboard Ipnu Rivulet, the Mill Desert, and I didn't want to cast my Approach to the Second Sun because I only had like 5 cards left in my library. I was like, I don't want to get like my Approach milled by this Ipnu Rivulet, so I'm going to wait. And I waited till I had Overwhelming Splendor. And then I played it. Then I cast Approach to the Second Sun. He like tanks. And he's like, activate that Ipnu Rivulet. I'm like, nah. I'm like, you can't. Like, I got this Overwhelming Splendor. I have the mythic counter to your dumb uncommon land, which is the only way I can lose. He was just like, this is ridiculous. And he just scooped us. Yes. But I also had like Angel Condemnation. That card's not even that card's not a little bit realistic. The 3/3 for 4 with vigilance that you can tap it to blink another creature.
What?
Did you not see this White Angel?
This when we were talking about the spoiler, this was like my favorite card.
And then you can exert it to Fiend Hunter something. Or you can just pay 3 and tap it. So you can attack and then in combat blink, or you can blink their attacker after attacking in the air for 3. But more importantly, I also had a Vizier of Tumbling Sands to untap target permanent with. And oh boy, let me tell you.
That sounds delightful.
Dude, it was awesome.
Oh, geez, this card's nuts.
It's got to be the best rare, I think, maybe like in the set for just creature. It's so incredibly powerful. Actually, it was a good example of a patient play where a friend of mine was watching me play one of my games with that deck, and I had Angel in my opening hand, and I think I cast it on turn 18 because I refused. In game 1, he'd shown me a bunch of removal, and I refused to get my Angel killed, so I was playing out like a Colossopede first. I was really patient, just trying to draw out all the puncturing blows, and then finally, like when he's top decking, I was like, all right, Angel, go, and the game's over. Like you just couldn't do anything. And Curtis was like, wow, I can't believe you waited that long. And I was like, yeah, because this card's unbeatable. Like it's so good if you just are patient. But
yeah.
So my deck was like pretty good. And then I did the reverse yesterday when Alex and I were drafting. I drafted a 14 land blue-red aggro deck where I had 2 3-drops and a 4-drop, and everything else cost 1 and 2. And I played a lot of Slither Blades and Proven Combatants and attacked. It was awesome. Went 4-0.
Nice.
Killed people on turn 5 and 6 multiple times.
Yeah.
With Firebrand Archers. That card is Berserk in my deck. Well, I had a turn 4 where I had 2 Firebrand Archers in play. And then my opponent played like a 3-mana 3/2 on their turn 4, and they didn't really have anything else. And I'd played a 1-drop as well, so I just went double Blur of Blades, like kill your 3/2, take 8 from the Blur of the Blades plus the Firebrand Archers, and then attack you for 5. Like 13 you on turn 4. Yeah, it was pretty good. It's pretty good. The deck was nice.
Jeez. Yeah.
You had a similar deck to me.
Also drafted
you were just the slower version.
Yeah, I drafted blue-red spells. I didn't have really any 1-drops outside of like Unsummon.
Yeah, I had 2 Unsummons.
Yeah. I think I could have drafted a little better. I went 3-1. I didn't have any Firebrand Archers, which I really wish my deck really wanted. I had Edifice of Authority. That card's really good.
Yeah. The best card in my deck was actually Riddle Form.
Yeah, I didn't have any of those either.
That card, like, I had an Earthshaker Kenner, and someone watching my games was like, oh my God, you have an Earthshaker Kenner, so lucky. I'm like, in draft, it's like, I don't know, it's a 2-mana 2/1 with haste. Like, it's fine. It's fine. But Riddle Form, every time I played it on turn 2, because my deck had, like, I was playing a Crash Through main because I just wanted as many non-creature spells as possible because I had Prowess and, like, Firebrand Archers.
Yeah.
Like, every game that I had Riddle Form on turn 2, the game was over because they don't want to. They're trading down in mana to kill it on time unless they have an Abrade. Which, if they're in my draft, I first picked and like made sure no one else had. But it's a 2-mana 3/3 flyer that also late game, because my curve was so low, if I flooded at all, I could safely scry in my upkeep with like 3 land from Riddle for him and just leave 2 land up and know that I could play the top card of my deck because everything in my deck costs 2. Like the card is just so versatile.
What you're telling me is that a 2-mana 3/3 flyer that fixes your draws might be a good card.
Yeah.
Where have I heard that before?
It's the new Smuggler's Copter. But no, it was super, super powerful.
Yeah.
Like it was so good.
It's borderline constructed playable. That deck is like maybe 1 or 2 cards short.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe next set we'll get something for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I second picked it. Like I first picked an Abrade and then I second picked a Riddle for him. And Riddle for him was phenomenal. Like that card's super good. Yeah. And that was the kind of cards you were missing from your draft deck. But your draft deck still had like what is it, Bloodwater Entity or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
That card's really strong.
Yeah, the 3-mana blue-red creature. That
2/2 prowess flying. Like
puts instant sorcery from your graveyard back on top of your deck.
Yeah, that card's really good.
Yeah. It was. The deck turned it out a little bit better than I originally thought it would be. I had like 3 puncturing blows in my deck.
Yeah, so I told you. You were like, my deck sucks. And I looked at it, I was like, not that bad.
I had a Scarab God played against me in round 3 that immediately died. And then
puncturing blow, like casting
a Locust God that it was immediately killed. Round 4, my opponent played Scarab God at game 1 and 2. It died immediately both times. And then game 3, I milled it with Winds of Rebuke, just incidentally.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, man. I just want to appreciate the design of the limited set where something like Puncturing Blow exists. Like, so the most obnoxious mythics in the set have an answer at common that's like good enough to just play.
Yeah, and even Final Reward, right? Like there are ways to beat. I think
so. Like opening one of those mythics is still great, but you have to be smart about it, right?
Yeah, you have to be patient and careful.
You can't just slam it and then get rewarded for opening a mythic.
And that's what most people do. So it's cool because like you can beat those people.
Yeah.
Because I also the last week or a week and a half ago I played against someone in a draft who had Locust God. They were so stoked. They just slammed it on 5 and I was like, okay, untap like Puncturing Blow your Locust God, go. And they were so mad. They were like, oh, it doesn't come back to my hand. I was like, no, like I mean, maybe you could have just played out your other 5. And then they played like another 5 drop and I was like, I mean, you could have waited.
Yeah.
I might have had to kill that. Like that's what you get. Like,
like compared to
they should have listened to our older episodes.
Yeah, like compared to something like Sigarda in Innistrad, Shadows over Innistrad, there's just like no good answers to it. You could clip wings it maybe if you bothered to draft one. Like they're just huge and they didn't have to attack to get any value out of it. And there was like nothing that could kill it out of like snap neck or neck break kind of things.
These gods were designed well.
Yes,
and they are okay in their limited set. Although to be fair, if someone untaps with like Scorpion God, the game's over.
Oh yeah, all of them are busted if you untap with them. But like you still have to play smart with them.
Yeah, you still have to be careful.
If you dump all your mana into one of them, like and it gets killed, like if one turn of that, your opponent can probably come back. Like there's play to them on both sides. They're just well designed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So one of the things we wanted to do for episode 50 is kind of a bit of a retrospective. A few of our favorite episodes where we thought the topics that were covered were pretty good.
Yeah, we just thought the discussion was like...
And a few highlights from our first 50 episodes. And then blowout of the week is we're going to share our 2 favorite blowouts from the first 50 episodes of the podcast.
I also want to say, like 50 episodes is a lot. I'm pretty proud of that. Like we've been doing this for over a year because like we missed a few weeks here and there. Right? It's just been just over a year.
No, we'll be getting to a year this month because we started on August last year.
Oh, okay. So
the first episode I was on was the second one, and that was right before Eldritch Moon. It was before the Eldritch Moon Pro Tour.
We started in like April.
We started in July 29th. There we go. iTunes figured it out. Fair. So, yeah, we're just over a year old.
Yeah,
now.
just over a year. Yeah. That's about right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm pretty proud that's like just over a year. We've been like wasting everyone's time talking about Magic. But I didn't know what the topic would be today. And we were kind of talking and I was like, I actually kind of learned a lot. I haven't been playing as much. Like we haven't got to play as much. So I haven't been competing at the same level, like trying to play on the Pro Tour and like playing on the Pro Tour and playing in Grand Prix as much. But that's just a product of me finishing my PhD. You as well. You were finishing school.
Yeah.
Like everyone's been really busy. Like, and usually that also would preclude Pete from traveling because like one of us would be driving, so he would also come with us to a GP. So
and also Grand Prix are $90.
Yeah, now they're also very expensive. So there's just been a host of factors that have kind of prevented us from playing at higher levels. Although I will begin to, now that I'm mostly done my PhD, I'll probably start looking into playing a lot more. But despite that, doing this podcast over the past year, I felt has actually made me better at Magic. And so I thought, and same with Alex, we were talking about this. And obviously it has also made some of our friends better, and listeners and stuff have written in. So like, I really appreciated that. And I thought maybe we'd spend some time talking about the episodes that we thought helped us the most. And maybe like, if you're new to this show, you can go back and listen to, or like we think are the best episodes for from our first 50.
Yeah, definitely. If you're a new listener and you've just started listening to the podcast over the last few episodes, or maybe even this is your first one, we've picked out 5 episodes that we think are good to go back to and listen to if you want basically the best.
Yeah, they're just kind of fundamental skill set episodes that will teach you basics and fundamentals, but also more intricate conversations about how the games play out. We just think they're like well thought out and developed episodes that had very good conversations. Like going back and re-listening to them, we're like, wow, these were like actually very in-depth and very interesting episodes.
Going back the farthest, the first one we picked out was episode 22, where we talked about evaluating week 1 decks.
Yeah, so I thought this episode was interesting because this is something that we return to all the time.
Yeah.
Like you always come back to evaluating week 1 decks because
it's week 1 4 times a year.
Right. There's week 1s all the time. It never stops. And like, this is something like Pete's actually been on like week 1 episodes or pre-week 1 episodes, like spoiler, and like discussing what you should be looking forward to doing, right? Like what cards will be good. Like, for example, the very second episode we ever did, Pete was on, and he talked about like Elder Deep Fiend and like where it was going to line up in week 1 and like why it would be good or not good.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a lot of comparisons to like fairies at the time, and
it was just ludicrous.
Yeah,
and
like,
you came on and said as much.
Yeah, like this is not the card had restrictions on it in addition to like the things. It was not champion, like not even close, and like. Yeah, we just talked about it. We had some good like fundamentals about how to evaluate cards and like what things are good, and you know.
Yeah, and this kind of like assessing week 1 format episode that we did, it just gives a good primer, and we do it all the time. I think we did it a couple weeks ago. I was like, okay, well, where do you go from here? Like, what are the major players? What are the major cards? So this is a good episode for like brewers and people looking at trying to figure out what cards matter and what information will matter. So this is kind of a good episode for people just how to analyze what's going on in the first week of any kind of...
Yeah, and to like give listeners a kind of idea of where we were for that episode. That was after week 1 of Aether Revolt Standard.
So it was a brand new standard, too.
Yeah, that was that Copter had just gotten banned, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
It wasn't banned yet. It got banned at Christmas time.
Aether Revolt was in January.
Yeah.
Oh, so it had just been banned.
Yeah, it had just been
sorry,
banned.
my bad.
Yeah.
It was Kaladesh that it was legal. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
So like Emrakul, Copter, and Reflector Mage had just been banned.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and we were talking about how going forward, like what are the cards now that are going to matter that these oppressive, cards are gone.
Well, the obvious
turns out it was Marvel.
Oh
yeah, it was Felidar Guardian.
Yeah.
Then it was Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were so hopeful at the time.
I mean, it's been Attune with Aether this whole time.
Yeah, Attune with Aether has been the real criminal.
I mean, we're only half joking, but
but actually, speaking of old episodes like numbers 1, 2, and 3, like sorry about the sound quality too. It's so funny. I was like listening to episode 1. I was like, man, our sound quality is terrible back then.
Oh yeah, it was so bad. Episode 1, we
recorded on laptops with like no real mic.
No, there wasn't a mic. We just had the laptop in the middle of the table, and we just all tried to speak loud.
Yeah, it was awful.
It was so bad. Yeah.
It was so bad. Now we have like actual studio microphones and stuff. It sounds way bad.
If you actually want to go back far enough and listen to all the episodes from the beginning, you'll notice a huge difference in sound quality now.
Pretty drastic change.
I actually master the podcast now.
yeah. This is actually producer Stelly. Like, it actually does work.
Yeah. So next episode, a few episodes after 22, we're moving on to 26, where we talked about preparation. Specifically, just I guess in general, just preparation for playing tournaments.
Yeah, just how to go about preparing for tournaments that actually matter to you and your deck, like, and what the tournament means to you. Like, do you just want to cash this GP? Like, do you want to win? Like, how mentally to do it? We talked about a lot of stuff because this was when Mike was getting ready to try and qualify and like go for a lot of PTs, and he was like trying to qualify for the Pro Tour.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't heard Mike's voice on the podcast, he was one of our original co-hosts, and this episode was leading up to. It was a couple of weeks before the RPTQ he played in,
which he qualified for the Pro Tour playing in.
Yeah, for his first time ever.
And he was very like dedicated, and he talked at length about how he went about preparing and what he had to do to prepare. And it was interesting, because like we've had messages from people on the podcast like, oh, should I play modern if I want to get better at standard? Like, are those transferable and translatable skills? And I said, like, I responded in this message saying, yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. And if you go back and listen to this episode, Mike was saying like, I played modern this weekend and I really wanted to just stay sharp, so I played modern even though like the RPTQ is standard. And then he played legacy the next weekend and he was doing that, and it's like he constantly was just trying to play as much as he could and apply those skills cross format of just like paying attention, focusing, sequencing, and really just staying sharp and just staying competitive, right? So that was a lot of like, it was a good episode about just kind of that hunger and like the edge for like wanting to win. Like it was a really good, because he was very driven, and it was like a good episode about like how to maintain that fire and like the desire to chew concrete, basically, right? Like to be aggressive, and but like about wanting to win. It was a good episode for that.
Yeah, definitely. And next episode on the list was episode 36, where
this was Cam's pick for his favorite episode that we've done.
So this was 1 week into Amonkhet Standard, where we were seeing Mardu vehicles, mono black zombies, like a lot of aggressive decks dominating Standard.
Yeah, just aggro mirrors.
And so the focus for this episode was basically how to approach aggro mirrors. And we talked about sideboard, and we talked about card selections for your main deck. Talked about...
You had also traveled at this point to play Mardu vehicles in a GP. This was similar to, like, I think 3 weeks before, about 3 or 4 weeks before it, the Pro Tour for Amonkhet, you had also traveled and played Mardu vehicles in a Grand Prix.
Yeah. Yeah, in New York, New Jersey. It was GP New Jersey.
Yes. Yeah. So, and you played a lot of Mardu mirror, and so we talked about aggro mirror and what mattered in aggro mirrors and how to know your role. This was a super good episode.
Yeah, we talked about literally everything from main deck card choices to sideboard and card choices.
And it wasn't just like, we were specific, say, about Toolcraft Exemplar.
Yeah, it was specific cards, why you sideboard out specific cards in certain matchups.
But we applied them broadly from like, to a theory perspective of like, this is why you board these kinds of cards out. So it's not just Toolcraft Exemplar. Like, this is going to apply 10 years from now, and it applied 5 years ago, or 20 years ago. So it's a super good episode. And we kind of, and you had a really good point about Toolcraft Exemplar, right? Like,
basically, we're talking in aggro mirrors. One of the main focuses of the episode was playing cards that pivot. So, if anyone who played Mardu vehicles or still does, whenever you're playing a Mardu mirror match or against another aggressive deck, you generally sideboard out your Toolcraft Exemplars because that card is only good on offense and not on defense. And when you're playing aggressive strategy mirrors, you need cards that do both. We just kind of we talked a bit about cards like that, and basically topics all related to that.
It was like a really cool. I think we kind of came to this really cool conclusion about pivoting. Like I thought that was a super good, like super accurate term for what was happening in the best cards in aggro mirrors, right? Like we identified Archangel Avacyn as like a card that pivots. That's why it was so good in the aggro mirrors and the Mardu mirror, because
and why Mardu just adapted to playing more and more of that card.
It just kept playing more Avacyns in, because if it was going to play the mirror, that card did everything. It's just like Sylvan Advocate, right? And the reason that card was good against other aggro decks is it pivots. It plays both offense and defense. It can switch roles. It has versatile functions. So
that's why we're seeing it again, which we already talked about this episode.
What about cards that see play right now, like in zombies? What's the pivot? What would you say the pivot card is?
I think like the pivot cards are probably like Crypt Breaker, like in the sense that Crypt Breaker can make an army, or it can draw cards.
How about like I was thinking like Avacyn's Mastery, Liliana's Mastery. Is it like it swings races really quickly, right?
Yeah, that's another like that card's just like,
and in mono red things
does
like
everything.
Things like Hazoret
Hazoret's the defining like sideboard, essentially quote unquote sideboard at mono red aggro matchup, right?
And she does sort of the same thing as Avacyn, but in a different way. She just makes it impossible to race back, not because you're running into a blocker, but just because you're taking so much damage.
Right. Well, and it attacks and plays defense because it's indestructible. Like in the mirrors, it can do everything.
But like Avacyn swings races by being like a blocker, right? But Hazoret swings races by forcing them to leave back a blocker.
Right.
Just because otherwise it's so much damage so quickly.
Yeah. But you can also block with Hazoret while still doing damage.
Yeah.
So it can play offense and defense. Like it's a very it's a card that pivots.
I think the best example from standard at the moment is Walking Ballista.
Oh yeah,
it does everything.
Yeah, Ballista's another pivot card. Like it's good. It's good in aggressive decks. It's good in defensive decks. Like that's why Ramp plays it. That's why Green Black plays it. Like it's just such a versatile card.
Yeah.
Like it's not the most aggressive deck or a card, but
but I think it's the card that can pivot the best.
Yeah, because it can deal with planeswalkers,
both offense and defense the best.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like it just does so much. That's why it's one of the best cards in standard, right? Like that's why, in fact, when we talk about it in that episode, like that's why everyone's dropped Veteran Motorist and went to Walking Ballista, because Walking Ballista could play both roles.
Yeah.
Right. That's why it dominated. Like if you go back and look at the results, originally it was just Veteran Motorists everywhere until that European GP where those guys, like it was a group of like 3 or 4 of them, they all just played they were the first ones and they all just played Walking Ballistas and they just mowed the entire tournament down because they just played the mirror.
And they had the better sideboard plan with like
they just had a main board too. Yeah. But they had Walking Ballista and they could in game 1 they could pivot.
Yeah.
So like they couldn't be stopped essentially. So yeah, I think it's a really good episode. I think it's definitely in the top 2 episodes we've ever done. I thought was the Aggro Mirror episode. It was super good.
That's episode 36 if you can't remember because we talked about it for so long.
Yeah. What's the episode called?
Who's the fastest of them all? Yeah. Next episode on the list, episode 44. The focus of this topic podcast was mulligans.
Yeah, it's a good episode. I wasn't here for it. I was in Nova Scotia finishing my dissertation, but I listened to it while I was traveling back to Ontario. And I thought, this was such a good fundamentals episode.
Pete was on this episode.
I think so.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, because you filled in for Adam.
Me. Yeah, I must have
every episode he was gone. Yeah.
Yeah, it was this was 7, 8 or something like the name of the episode.
Because 765.
Oh, because 765.
Okay, now it's all I had suppressed the memories about discussing that title with Cam.
Yeah, him and his like horrible puns. Yeah, it can be pretty traumatizing. But yeah, so I listened to this episode, and they're all things I know, from playing for so long. But there were things that I'd almost had forgotten, and I was listening to this mulliganing episode when I was kind of driving back to Ontario, and I was like, wow, that's like really good. Like just the kind of like Cam's conversation about like sketchy hands and just like, no, God, no, get out of here. Like I'm not taking the risk. Like I'll just mull because I know a 6 is better. And he talked about like, and you guys also talked about like what decks can mull and should mull and how they mull better than others and like what's your deck's
we went
game
specifically
plan?
by like format too.
Oh yeah, like it's a very thorough breakdown by format. Like you guys talk about legacy, limited, modern, standard, and like why mulligans in each format are different. Like it was a great episode.
I just had you mentioned thinking about things that you had almost forgotten about. Like since this is a retrospective episode, I thought I'd just interject. Like that is a really important thing for any kind of thinking you do. Like always try and reassess like all the habits, good and bad, that you've gotten into for like whatever you do, magic, anything in life.
Yeah.
Just like it's so easy just to slip into like, well, I've always done it this way and it works out pretty well, so I'm just going to keep doing it. But like think about it every once in a while, Maybe you can find a new application or a slightly better way of doing it, or just like having it in your mind so you're actively thinking about it and integrating it into other decisions you're making,
Your decision tree should also be able to pivot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's important because you got to play the mirror in your own brain sometimes. So you need brain thoughts that pivot. But yeah, no, this is like a really good episode, and it wasn't just for like, it seems like a kind of fundamentals episode, like a beginner's idea. And it's funny, it took us that long to talk about mulligans. We talked about them briefly before, but we had a whole episode dedicated to it. But it was really good. It was a really good, like, tons of examples of like, do you keep his hand? Like, yes or no? And like, it's important to remember, like, you have a choice to mulligan. Like, it's your choice. You get the option. It's not a punishment. Mulliganing is not a punishment, right? Like, people often are like, "Oh, I mulled 5. Like, I can't win now." It's like, well, you had a choice. Like,
man, do you know how many times I've won to mults on 3 with Infect?
Probably a lot.
Just like, yeah, like you can just like, I mean,
Do you
the deck
remember?
is dead now, but
I've
you
won
can just
on
like,
many mulls to 3 withdrawn.
yeah, you like
I've
many,
I've
many.
watched you win many mulls to 3 withdrawn.
Actually, modern decks are. Well, there's a lot of modern decks like that where you can just like go away, like just put away anything that's mediocre, and like you only need like 3 or 4 cards to win a game.
Oh yeah, that's what I used to do with Affinity. Remember, I was like, I just mull every hand that wasn't comically explosive. I just ship it. Like, nah, I do better. Like, you just get a gross hand. Like,
you could. That's the thing. You can do better in modern.
Right, you can just do better. I remember when I was streaming. It was during. I have to do this. It was when I was playing Mardu Green.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Yes.
I have to pay respect. But I remember I used to make a joke on stream about how I never lost mulls to 4 with that deck because I would just find like lands, Rhino, Crackling Tombs. Like, oh yeah, let's go. Right, like 3 lands and a Crackling Tomb keep. Like, yeah, like you have an option and you can win on mulls. So yeah, it was a good episode.
And last episode on our list, actually 3 episodes back, episode 47, Gotta Go Slow, talking about patience.
So this was the one that Cam said he learned the most from, and he thought,
I'm probably in the same boat there. I really think I've learned a lot. I learned a lot just from talking about it that episode.
yeah.
Like things I already knew, but just kind of going over them again. Like even playing last night, there were so many points where like just points from that episode were just playing in my mind the whole time I was playing, and I was so much more patient and like I played so much better in my opinion just because of that.
I am a very, very patient player. And it was kind of, and I think most people aren't patient. I'm very slow. Not like this at my speed or pace of play, but I'm slow as in the sense of like I'm careful with what cards I play out and how I sequence my cards, and I'll wait and I'll use my life total as a resource. I think it comes from playing Control for a long time, and I don't play Control much anymore. But this episode was inspired by a conversation actually I had with Pete, where a friend of mine was visiting and he played Ronus's Last Stand in his sealed deck, which is 2 green, make a 5/4, your lands don't untap during your next untap step. And I asked him how it was, and he said it wasn't good. He said it was not great all day, and he cast it on turn 2 or 3 a couple times, and it was just not very good, and it just would like die to a Ruin Rat or whatever, like a removal spell, get on summon, something, who knows. Mm-hmm. And Pete said the same thing, and they were all talking, and I said, yeah, I guess it does suck on turn 2, but I wouldn't play it on turn 2. And that's what inspired this episode.
Yeah.
Was I said, well, I would play it on turn 7 because I would just play out the rest of my cards and wait so that on turn 5 or 6, I could play my last card in hand, like let's say removal spell for their best guy, then play Ronus Last Stand when they're out of removal or they've played out bigger threats, so that the punishment of my lands not untapping now doesn't matter because I'm top decking, so presumably won't matter as much or has less percentage points to matter as much. Mm-hmm. And this is a sequencing thing as well, but it's a patience thing. And recently even I talked about how I waited for like 10 or 18, some obnoxious amount of time with Angel of Condemnation. I wouldn't play it out because I didn't need to. Board was at parity. I'll wait as long as I can to try and play around things. And that kind of inspired the patience episode. And I had a few people telling like, yeah, it's like, you can, just waiting. Like there's no need to rush. Like in this episode, we talk about how like you watch games of Limited, especially, and people just fire off their removal spells.
It's like Doomblade, a 3-drop, like
just like it doesn't matter. Like people like, I had like multiple people use like puncturing blows on like my crappy creatures. And I'm like, like I had a guy like, kill like a mediocre embalm guy, and I'm like, why? Like, who cares? Like, what if I have a god?
Mm-hmm. Like I think this is like the biggest thing that's helped me when I was starting out, like to get reasonable at Limited, was like, don't just fire things off. Like you can just, take a hit from a 3/3, play out a grizzly bear and like another like 2 grizzly bears and just like block it in 2 turns or whatever. Like you're not taking that much damage, and like save your premium removal spell for something that's going to matter, or until they've run out of cards and you can safely kill their last thing and like start attacking. Like just like be conservative with your removal and be conservative with your threats too.
Oh yeah, like in that episode even I talk about how I have an Hour of Revelation in my hand at one point, and I was playing against a listener of the show, and we had a really good games against Stu, and like his friend Logan was watching, and Logan like shook his head after the game and was like, oh my God, you're so patient, because I was losing to like a 3-2 and a 2-1. and we were both top decking, and except for I had Hour of Revelation in my hand the whole time, but I refused to use it on a 3/2 and a 2/1 because my logic was like, if my deck can't like top deck to at least trade with a 3/2, then like I suck and my deck sucks. Like I draft 1/1s? Like I didn't. I didn't draft 1/1s. I drafted like 3/4s and 4/5s. Like any creature, if I draw reasonably well, I'll be able to block these guys. I'm not wasting my Hour of Revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And then he played Overwhelming Splendor later, and I had the Hour of Revelation for it. Right? So it's like, yeah, just being patient, but it applies in Standard and Legacy especially, you know, like that's a format that rewards patience. So it's a good episode. I don't know. It's a good episode. I enjoyed talking about it.
So yeah, to list those back, we had episode 26, 22, 36, 44, and 47. All great episodes.
Yeah, Gotta Go Slow is a funny title because, you know, like we'd always joke for the listeners, at least in the beginning of the podcast, we'd always joke about having to go fast.
I'm pretty sure one of our early episodes is titled "Gotta Go Fast."
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah, and we'd all often joke about "Gotta Go Fast" because during this period, Mike was playing a lot of aggressive decks as well, and we would often joke about going fast. And our friend of the show, Phil Sams, who qualified for the Pro Tour as well shortly after being on the show, as we'd often joke, if you come on the show as a guest. We also had some good interviews, like Dan Lanthe, Gold Level Pro.
Yeah,
if you want to listen to that episode, he came on the show and just talked about his testing process and what it's like being on the Pro Tour as a Gold Level Pro. It's a pretty cool episode too. We've had a few like different guests on the show, like John Rowe, top 8 some GPs, played in some like high level Magic tournaments. So there's some interview episodes as well with kind of like higher level players. If you want to go listen to those, I thought they were really good.
Yeah. To wrap this episode up, we just kind of wanted to point out a few of the highlights from our first 50 episodes, being our original co-host Mike and friend of the show Phil Sams, who's been on the show a few times, qualifying for the Pro Tour for the first times ever.
Immediately after being
because of us, because we had
taught
them on the
how
podcast.
to get better at Magic.
Yep, all us, not them.
I mean, I'll get back on the Pro Tour as soon as I start playing again. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, that was one of the big things, and then one of I guess the funnier things from our first 50 episodes was going into Pro Tour Aether Revolt. There was talk about Mardu vehicles, and we were adamant on the show that the deck was so bad.
I was
it was unplayable.
I still hate that deck.
Adam was so sure that the deck was terrible that he made the comment on the show that if Mardu vehicles won the Pro Tour, we would all pie each other in the face.
The video is on our Facebook page.
And as it so happened, 6 copies of Mardu vehicles made that top
6. 6. Not just one. It's not like one snuck into the top 8. 6.
And it
whatever. 6 red decks made it. That deck sucks too.
Very handedly won the Pro Tour.
Oh yeah, it was a dominant. There was like multiple guys went like 18-0 with
it. My favorite part of this whole thing is Adam continues to justify his position by saying that it was powerful but extremely inconsistent, which is literally what you want if you want to win a Pro Tour.
So the video of us pieing each other in the face is still on our Facebook page.
Yep.
Pretty sure it's on the Wizard Tower.
Yeah, it's like a
Facebook page.
Triple. Yeah, you can find it on.
Yeah, where myself, Adam, and Mike all pied each other in the face at the same time.
You can go. We'll link it with this app. We'll link it as a retrospective video, so you can, because there's a slow motion one, and Alex gets me real bad.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's a rough pie.
Yeah, and then to wrap up episode 50 of the DWC podcast, we want to go over the 2 favorite blowouts from our first 50 episodes.
Do you want to do the first one? I'll do this. You pick one you want to do, and then I'll do the other one.
Okay, I'll do the one that Cam did because I was there.
Yeah.
One of our first blow, I think, was this the first one?
And with this one, let me tell the other one first, because that one's better.
Okay.
Yeah, yours. That one's definitely better. Okay, so one of our favorites was sent by a local player named Chad, who was at a PTQ in a different city, and it was during Felidar Guardian Saheeli combo, and he was playing Blue White Brain in the Jar, but he hadn't had any white sources up, and his opponent didn't know really what he would have, and he had 5 counters on his Brain in the Jar, and his opponent finally was able to assemble the Felidar Guardian combo, and thinking, mono blue, whatever, Brain in the Jar garbage, okay, make cats kill you. And Chad said, well, how many are you making? And the guy flippantly goes, well, 2 million. And Chad goes, okay. And the guy goes, well, okay, attack you with them. And Chad's like, activate Brain in the Jar. fumigate you because he had a fumigate stranded in hand. Gain 2 million life from the fumigate, untap, and his opponent just like sinks, but then thinks, oh, okay, well, I'll just keep playing out the game. I still have a seed.
I'll win next turn.
I'll win next turn or something. Draw another Felidar Guardian. Who knows, right? And then Chad untaps, goes what's it called?
Aetherflux Reservoir.
Aetherflux Reservoir, which is you may. What is it like?
Pay 50 life,
50
deal
life,
50 damage.
Deal 50 damage.
To a creature or player.
To a creature or player. So
Just
he plays it at 2 million and 20 life and goes 50 myself, 50 myself, 50 myself to his opponent over and over, just trolling him. And then finally, and his opponent's like, try to scoop. He's like, I'm not done. 50 myself. Because he was so bitter about like the combo because he hated the Felidar Guardian. So the Fumigate on the Brandon jar is like pretty funny just because it was like such an obnoxious troll. So that was a good one. But this one I think is like,
yeah.
This one is so absurd and such because like the best blowouts are like you played well, you didn't punt. Blowouts aren't punts. You didn't make a mistake. You played normally and something tragic happened. Something went awry.
Yeah. So I just want to look up this card so I can get the exact.
We'll like explain each card so you can get a full picture. This was at a PPTQ, and it was a sealed event.
Yeah, it was Eldritch Moon sealed.
It was Eldritch Moon sealed, and it was Cam.
So Cam, current co-host on the show, was playing against another player here in Ottawa, and the Cam's opponent had a bunch of creatures on the field.
It was kind of a board stall with a bunch of creatures, but his opponent had smaller creatures.
Yeah, and he had a few creatures that when you sacrifice them, you get an effect.
Like there were creatures that, you sack it, you draw a card.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what they were. That was a long time ago.
It was Exultant Cultist. I remember Exultant Cultist and a few others that make 3/2s.
So this player plays Emrakul's Evangel, which is a 3-mana 3/2 green creature that reads tap, sacrifice Emrakul's Evangel and any number of other non-Eldrazi creatures, and you put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token on the battlefield for each creature sacked this way. So, basically, the player does this, sacrifices his entire board, puts all these like draw triggers and all the like creature triggers on the stack.
Goes to start drawing.
And goes to start drawing, and Cam's like, hold on. Summary dismissal. Exiles everything on the stack, so that basically
counters all abilities on the stack and exiles all of them.
Yeah, so this player just sacked his entire board for no value and got completely destroyed.
Just by one random card and limited that you'd never play around.
Why this is the best one is because I'm pretty sure it was the first one we told on the show.
But it's also an insane blowout. Like let's just be clear.
It started our trend of blowout of the week.
Yeah.
And it honestly, every Magic player in Ottawa knew about this blowout within 24 hours of it happening.
Oh, last.
Like it's shot through the city.
Like it was
so quickly.
That's such a beating. Like you would never play around summary dismissal unlimited, especially in this situation, especially when you're going to sack a bunch of stuff to get value from it and just think, wow, I'm going to win on the spot. And then instead you literally just plague winded yourself. And apparently the player just looked down. He's like, I'll scoop. Like
that was actually the response. I'll scoop.
He just picked up his cards. So at the time, I was like working part time at a different card store, and I was on like an hour away on the other side of the city. Mm-hmm. They were like West and East End, and this tournament was in the East End. Or West End, and I was working at a card store part time in the East End, and like there was a legacy tournament going on while I was like working, and literally like multiple people all looked up from their phones because different people had messaged them to tell them the story, and multiple people at a different card store across the city all looked up and were like, man, did you just hear what happened with Cam, the summary dismissal? Like multiple people.
Like it was so funny. I was watching the match and I watched it happen, and I just like I walked away and like had to go outside because I was laughing so hard.
Yeah. Such a beating.
It was incredible. So yeah.
Summary dismissal news travels fast in this community.
Yeah. That's such a crazy blowout.
So yeah, let's wrap this episode up. Thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs, free shipping and states in Canada. Really want to give a big shout out them for supporting us over these past 50 episodes.
Yeah, I can't thank them enough for the support, and just like kindness in general that store has shown us. Like,
and not just us, the whole community in Ottawa.
Yeah, like I'm not getting paid to like plug them this, like to say how much I appreciate them, that like they put on the best tournaments.
Competitive Magic is alive in Ottawa because of Wizards Tower.
Yeah, literally single-handedly, like, and not even just in Ottawa, like the surrounding area. Like people travel from an hour away to come to the store because it's the most competitive store. The best players in the city play here. They've made sure that they put on competitive tournaments for players. They really reward like local player base.
And we've got trios coming up. How sweet is that?
They have more like team events, so like I can keep my reigning defending title with the 12 Forcemen.
For sure.
But they're just a great store. Yeah.
Also want to give a shout out to all the listeners who have shot us a message, whether it's a blowout or maybe a topic they want to hear about.
Or just your kind words, man. They mean so much.
We really appreciate it all. Keep those blowouts coming. And if there are any topics you guys want to hear us talk about, send them our way.
Yeah, like the counterspell topic, like playing around counterspells was brought to us by a listener, and it was an awesome episode. That's another one that almost made the top 5. Mm-hmm. Cam wanted that on the top 5.
We're always reading the messages, we're always responding, so definitely send those our way. Make sure we are on Facebook. I don't think our Twitter page is a thing, but shoot us a like on Facebook. That's where you can message us if you ever want to get in contact.
We're always really good at responding on Facebook.
Our email is disorganizedwizardsclub@gmail.com if you want to shoot us a message there. And however you listen to this podcast, whether it's on Podbean, our host website, iTunes, or any podcast app, we have all 50 episodes up on iTunes now.
We figured
that out. Leave us a review, rate our podcast. Everything helps.
Like our page.
Yeah, and honestly, just sharing the podcast with your friends.
Hit that sub button.
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, but the best way to grow this podcast is honestly just telling someone about it. Sharing
it's been growing a lot. And like when we travel to GPs, like Cam was at Toronto, like, and people like, that's awesome, man. We love hearing from people. Like it means a lot to me when people message and say like, hey, I learned a lot from that episode. Like that's sweet. That's the only reason, like that's literally why we do this podcast.
Yeah.
So appreciate it a bunch.
Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.